Amanda Tassi, and I am an IMAP Media Arts and Practices PhD student. This is in cinema. It's an interdivisional, interdisciplinary program. I did my MFA here in animation as well, and worked at Disney for a few years before going back to school. I'm the team lead and also the lead artist. I'm looking for a lead designer and engineers. We have a lot of artists and some great composers on the team right now, but I think it's a great opportunity, especially for someone who wants to do level design. So Miralab is based upon the life cycle of the immortal jellyfish, which is a real living being. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So it's a first-person platformer explorer with a puzzle maze elements set within a lab, built in Unity 3D. So it's single player, but it's within a persistent networked world. So as you're playing through the game, certain elements stay within the game, but primarily it's a first-person experience. It's for PC, but the controller is actually an Android. So we'll use the tilt of the Android phone, the roll. You can use the Android like a joystick, but you can also just play it on the PC. But I really want to experiment with using the Android as a controller. Okay, so what is it about this crazy life cycle? So like I said, this is a real being. It starts as a blob. Then it moves to a baby, it becomes an adult, and then it actually, this is true to life, inverses itself. It turns inside out, turns back to a blob, turns into a polyp again, and starts growing from there. And this life cycle can go on infinitely, which is why it's called immortal. When it moves to the polyp stage, it splits off. So this is where these clones, you're starting to build a cloning colony of yourself as you're playing the game. This life cycle influences the design structure of the entire game. So the player's movements are constrained and morph with each stage. This also influences the environment, which is constantly transforming as you're moving through each stage as well. Okay. So for example, when you're a blob, you can only roll on the ground. And so you're really seeing this very micro level experience of what's on the ground. As you're turning into a baby, you're starting to lift off a little bit more. So it's almost like moving from an underworld to an overworld experience. And within each stage, so the levels are fluid as you're moving through each stage. You can move through an entire cycle within about 5 minutes. After each cycle, you clone yourself, and so this colony starts to follow you around. So here's some more images of the actual life cycle that it goes through. So as you're cloning yourself, it's almost like, as a reference, like in Badland, how you have this colony and you're playing this colony. But that's not something that you can unlock until after you move through a life cycle, but then this stays with you over time. So this is the jellyfish model that we have right now, and the color of its stomach also changes based upon what it eats. This is the model of the lab, so it actually has this like retro, futuristic, sci-fi feeling to it, almost Tron-esque. So this is the model we have right now, but really you're playing with, in order to scope it, playing within this constrained space. This is some concept art. So it's really this evocative, mysterious world that starts out completely dark. Elements start to be added to it over time, but you're exploring, you're finding out more as you move through it, and unlocking, being able to see more and more the more you play through it. So here's the retro, futuristic, aquatic, sci-fi kind of feel to it. The concept art for Emma is in the middle, and then the other. Okay, here's some more concept art. So there's these geometric forms and these polyps which are starting to grow. So okay, so these are table coral, and there's a doorway. You're trying to get to this doorway, but in this stage you're a blob. You're starting to become more of a baby, and you can move a little bit more. But it's actually going to take a while to get to that doorway to move into the next stage. Sorry. And when you get to be an adult, then you can swim around and see more of an overworld map view of the world. But you have to be very strategic about where you're going to land once you're an adult, because based upon what you land on, that's going to influence what world you're then moving into. That becomes another level. So if you land on a microscope, that's going to be very different than if you land on another piece of coral. So I want to have 3 different feeling spaces, so 3 different types of worlds. One would be lab equipment. One would be some coral, as an example. But as the reversal starts to happen, it's really hard to move. So then you know, okay, I've got like 15 more seconds within this stage. I've got to be really careful and strategically steer where you're going to land on. So here's a screenshot from Unity. We've built a lot of art assets already. It's got this water feel to it, all of these different elements. These would actually be built over time, be added to the environment over time. So you wouldn't see this whole world. And this would also depend on what stage you're in. So right now, okay, I'm the team leader, lead artist. I'm looking for an engineer lead. I'm looking for a design lead. Also additional engineers and designers. We've got a lot of artists on the team. And some really fantastic concept artists as well. Simone was just nominated for a Student Academy Award. I got that award last year. Igor Nemirovsky is a fantastic composer. It's a cheesy show, but he's working on a couple of series right now. Video Game High School, very cheesy, but he also has done over 30 shorts, and Celeste is from Berkeley. Ian Dallas from the Unfinished Swan will be a mentor on this. So again, it's an experimental kind of art game that will be geared towards festivals in the vein of the Unfinished Swan and games like that. So these are, yeah. I'd like to keep the team pretty small so that everyone can have a big part, especially right now with the lead designers and additional designers. Since my expertise is really art and environment, or like I said, I worked in production design, that's really my strength, giving it this evocative mood and feel. But for someone who wants to get on the ground floor and do a lot of game design, I feel like it's a really great opportunity right now. So thank you. Oh, and the website, themiralab.com. Okay, are there any questions?